We are here after a little bit of
Stop.
technical difficulties, but
The
made
show
it
must go
back,
on.
made it back. How's everybody doing today?
Good, good. The show must go on. What's up,
What's
kid? What's up,
The
up?
lawyer?
show must go on.
We are in
All right.
building. All right, so
All right. So before we get started, Yamoya, I'm gonna throw it to you. Little housekeeping.
let's do it. So once again, fam, if you know anybody or if you are interested in, if you have your own YouTube channel, you have your own social media platform, anything like that, uh, we are able to do show intros, show outros, voiceovers, script copy, 15 and 30-second promos. That could take up to 48 business day turnaround. If so, just hit us up at ADOSCA Media Group at gmail.com. That's ADOSCA Media Group at gmail.com.
Wonderful.
Hit us up,
So
baby.
today we will be talking about Biden's draft picks and H1B lawsuits that are being filed all over the place, and of course, COVID updates, the never-ending COVID updates. So let's get started with Biden's picks. Anybody excited about that? Anybody on this list, Chris, that you could tell us about?
Womp womp.
It
Oh
got to be
man.
one, Chris. Come on, one, man.
You know what? So here's the deal, and I sound like Biden now. Here's the deal. So well, first of all, welcome everybody. Once again, ADOSCA Media Community Call-in, 9 p.m. every Tuesday. We do it for you. You can call in. You can let your voice be heard. We'll have the number coming up on the crawl in a few minutes. But this is your show, so feel free to like, share, subscribe as well. Hit that bell, and then also put your comments in the chat. We have an amazing show, obviously, for you today. We're getting started with some of these Biden picks, and it's been a wild, sort of transition from the Trump administration, the last days of the Trump administration, now to the first days of the Biden administration. And you know, let's put this in context before we go into some of the picks, right? Let's put this in context, and family, we definitely want to know what you think about some of these picks that Biden has made. There was some trouble, some conversation, some controversy around not having enough Black people picked over the last week, and so there's all that in the air too, and we'll definitely talk about that. But let's put this in context. We had a historic election about a month ago, right? 35 days ago. And even up until this weekend, even up until today, excuse me, Donald Trump is still claiming that he did not lose the election, right? So even up until today, Donald Trump is still claiming that he did not lose the election, right? At the same time, you have a transition going on from one administration to the next. So even though Trump is saying he didn't lose, behind the scenes, and sometimes not so much behind the scenes, there is a handover of power happening, right? And so it's in that context that we have these picks for the different departments, that Biden is making. And as recently as this week, we had Jim Clyburn, Mark Morial, Derek Johnson. So Jim Clyburn is majority whip for the House of Representatives, the number 3 Democrat in the House of Representatives, Black man, South Carolina. You are very much familiar with Mr. Clyburn. And yes, Naisha, thank you. We're gonna talk about Marcia Fudge, who just got tapped for HUD Secretary, Housing and Urban Development Secretary. Marcia Fudge out of Ohio. Shout out to the Ohio ADOS family. Shout out to you, Naisha. Shout out to Mark. Shout out to Gerard. Shout out to everybody out there. Shout out to the whole ADOS Ohio family. But the idea is, there's been some controversy and some trouble around why there hasn't been more Black people picked by Joe Biden, and we've had, like I said, Mr. Morial from the National Urban League, Derek Johnson from the NAACP, Jim Clyburn, and others publicly out in publications and newspapers and online media talking out loud about how there isn't enough Blackness in the administration's picks. And that's something to talk about, right? Because first of all, the question is, first, does it matter? Does having a Black face in a high place matter in 2020, right? And does it matter who that Black face is, right? So that's the first question. And secondly, I don't think it's a coincidence that in response to some of these public sort of controversy and shaming going on, that you've seen in the last 24, 48 hours 2 Black picks going to the cabinet. Nice just brought up the most recent one, who is Marcia Fudge, a Democrat out of Ohio. I think she comes out of the House of Representatives. She is someone who has been tapped to lead the Department of Housing and Urban Development. She's out of, I think, Warrensville. She's the former mayor of Warrensville Heights, Ohio. She is a loyal Democrat, and now she will be leading the Department of Housing and Urban Development, a very, very important place. Obviously, housing and homelessness, right, are big issues for ADOS communities nationwide. So that's an important pick. That's an important role. But also, you had just in the last, I want to say 24, 48 hours, you had General Lloyd Austin chosen to be Secretary of Defense. This, if I'm not mistaken, is the first ever Black Secretary of Defense. There was some speculation that Biden was going to pick, I believe, Michelle Flournoy, who would have been the first female choice for Secretary of Defense, but instead we get retired General Lloyd Austin, and he's going to be over our Defense Department. So that's a very, very interesting pick. Does it have something to do with all of the controversy over the last week or so about the lack of Blackness in the cabinet? I don't think it's a coincidence. Family, I want to know what you think too. To make sure to let your voice be heard in the chats, and also call in. If the family can put up the number for folks to call in, that would be awesome. And we have some other picks too who are Black that have been sort of talked about over the last few weeks too. For example, we have for the I believe it's the UN ambassador, we had Linda Thomas Greenfield. It's not a first of a kind pick. I think Susan Rice was UN ambassador before, so Susan Rice is what you would call Black. Also, so not a first of a kind pick, but there is she's another Black person in the cabinet. That's probably 3 so far of maybe 10, 11, 12, 13 picks. So that's the Blackness question. Also this week, we had a very surprising choice, if you ask me, for the Health and Human Secretary or Health and Human Services Secretary cabinet position. Mr. Xavier Becerra, who is, for those of us here in California, he is our California Attorney General. He's a former California congressman. He was in Congress for many, many years. He also did some time in the state house here in California. This was a surprise pick to me. And Kim and Yamoya, what do you think about this? I mean, this to me was a surprise, because I didn't expect, I thought maybe Xavier Becerra might get chosen for like a maybe a Department of Justice, something like that. But Health and Human Services, that came out of nowhere. Was that a surprise to either of you?
It was a surprise to me because I thought they were floating him for Kamala's Senate seat. And then the next thing you know, he's got this other appointment. So that's why it was surprising to me. But with that, who are we pushing to put in that AG seat?
So there are, well, there's no one on my radar right now, and I'm not close enough personally. I'm not close enough to the types of conversations where we would have a particular candidate in mind. I'm definitely looking and definitely have my ears open and have my eyes open, but I don't know of anyone off the top of my head. I think we'll get some ideas of some candidates very, very soon, and then we'll have an opportunity to help vet them. That's my guess.
Yeah, I thought I saw an article that just came out with some possible picks,
Really?
and it said that Newsom may be the deciding may be able to decide who goes into that AG seat.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it's it would be an appointment from the governor, if I'm not mistaken. Please, for the folks who know better, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Newsom will make that appointment. And you're right to bring up the fact that Becerra was being floated among a number of names to replace Kamala Harris, but obviously there's competition for that seat by Karen Bass, by also by Barbara Lee, right? So, we'll see what happens on that front. There's still been no choice by Governor Newsom about who is going to be the replacement for Kamala Harris, who is now the vice president elect of the United States. So, a lot going on. There are some other picks I think we want to sort of highlight in terms of the Biden cabinet. But before we do, the question to I think be having top of mind is, are black faces in high places enough, right? Is it enough to have someone who has melanin, or who may even share our lineage in a position? What matters on top of that? Does more matter? Does it matter that they actually have a black agenda, right? We would argue yes, of course, right? But a lot of the conversation over the last week has been about why there's no blackface in some of these high places. One thing to make note of, and I forget who originally said this sort of quote, but I know Yvette Carnell says it a lot. Yvette Carnell of Breaking Brown says this a lot. Sometimes policy is personnel, right? Policy is personnel. And if you've ever done any work like organizing or political, advocacy, you've seen this probably in action. Sometimes it matters who the person is in the office or the position you want, or who that decision maker is, can influence what they do, right? What their experience is, what their anchoring is, can influence what they do. So there is I think something to be said for having someone who is of your own experience, of your own lineage, of your own anchoring in a position of authority, in a decision-making position. But, is it just enough to have somebody who with the same color skin as me, or even the same lineage as me, or do we want more? And I think, obviously from my perspective, right, we want more. We want much, much more, right? So there are a couple other picks to sort of highlight here. Obviously,
before we do that, Chris, could we kind of go over the process of picking a cabinet for a president here? What do we have on this nice slide? What is the president's cabinet? The cabinet traditionally includes the vice president and the heads of 15 executive departments: agriculture, commerce, defense, education, energy, health and human services, homeland security, housing, urban development, interior, justice, the attorney general, labor, state, transportation, Treasury, and Veterans Affairs. Other officials also hold cabinet rank, including White House Chief of Staff, the United States Ambassador to the United Nations, the Ambassador of Environmental Protection Agency, the Director of Office of Management and Budget, the Chair of Council Economic Advisors, and the Administrator of Small Business Administration and U.S. Trade Representatives. Okay, and then we're going to go into how our cabinet members selected. Cabinet officers are nominated by the president and confirmed by the U.S. Senate by majority vote. Each official receives the title secretary, except the attorney general, who leads the Department of Justice. Cabinet members serve at the pleasure of the president and may be dismissed at any time. Tradition holds that cabinet secretaries resign when a new president takes office. So that's kind of the background process of it all. It sounds like there's not a lot of job security, and I guess we could see that from Trump's rotating cabinet during his administration.
Yeah, and you're right to bring up process here because it matters. Each one of these individuals, as mentioned, will have to be confirmed and affirmed through the Senate, right? And right now we have a Senate that is, not sure about which party is going to be in leadership. We have a runoff election in Georgia on January 5th that's going to determine who the leaders of the Senate are, right? Which party runs the Senate. But each of these individuals will have to go through a confirmation process. And you're right, they serve at the pleasure of the president, meaning they can be replaced at any time. And you're absolutely right. Trump has been, very, very, Trump has made use of that privilege often, especially after the election, the most recent election. There have been a lot of departures. There's even talk right now about Attorney General Bill Barr being replaced, between now and the end of the year. So, it's right to talk about process. There are some of these picks, for example, are expected to have much more easy confirmation, sort of processes than the other, right? I think, if you're talking about the Secretary of Defense, for example, I think that's going to be a lot easier. I don't expect any real, controversy, any real opposition. If you're talking about picks around, attorney general, depending on who it is, right? If you're talking about picks, for commerce and for labor, depending on who they are. But there has been some talk over the last, I want to say, week or so, and this is important to note from the progressive sort of part of the Democratic Party. A woman by the name of Neera Tanden, who has been nominated for the director of OMB, or the director of the Office of Management and Budget. And if you don't know what the Office of Management and Budget does, please learn more about it. It is a very, very important part of the government. Neera Tanden has been nominated to run the Office of Management and Budget, but she is someone who is expected to have, or at least according to some of the conversation over the last, let's say, week or so, have some trouble going through the confirmation process. There's some controversy around her name. If you talk to folks on the progressive left, they don't have much good to say about Neera Tanden. If you talk about folks on the right, they some of those folks don't have much good to say about Neera Tanden. So so it's sort of a both sides have some problem with her, and so this may be one of the more controversial parts of the confirmation process. To be honest with you, Mr. Biden's choice for climate czar, right? Mr. John Kerry. And that's former vice presidential candidate John Kerry, right? Former Senator John Kerry. John Kerry, and former, I think John Kerry was also a former ambassador, or he had a high level position in the Obama administration also, right? The there may be some controversy around him. Also, he's a very high profile figure. He has a very long past. He served in the previous administration, so there may be some controversy around him, less so than I think near Tandon. One thing to say also is that if you look at a lot of these picks and a lot of the staff, you'll notice that a lot of people are like coming from the Obama administration, or have worked in the Obama administration, or have very close ties to the Obama administration. And one sort of joke that's being floated around now is, this is sort of a third term of Obama. That Biden's picks are making this, a third Obama term, and there's some evidence that a lot of these people come from the Obama ranks, and we'll see how it plays out. But definitely some interesting picks by Mr. Biden so far. He still has some more to go, and so we'll see what happens going forward.
So, Chris, should we start going over some of these nominations currently that Biden has? If you would like.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely talk more about some of these.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, oh yes, I got.
All right, so I guess let's start from the top left. Looks like Biden is looking at Jacob Jeremiah Sullivan for the National Security Advisor. What do you think about this pick?
So this is the kind of pick that I was just talking about. This is someone who has ties to the Obama administration, has ties to Hillary Clinton. To be honest with you, he was a policy advisor for Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State during the Obama administration. So this is a safe pick, not a lot of controversy surrounding it, but it just goes to show you and underscores the point that I was just making, that a lot of these picks are from the Obama administration and tied very closely to the previous Obama administration.
All right, so I guess let's go to the right. Linda Thomas Greenfield as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations.
Yes.
Why Linda? And especially her, if I'm correct, possibly being ADOS in legacy. Some people say lineage. Why the UN? Why not something that's more domestic? Why the United Nations?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. And if there's questions about how like important that job is, to be honest with you. So and I don't want to minimize the importance of the job, but there are questions about sort of among the 12 or so different types of cabinet picks you can make. Where does this sort of pick rank? I tend to think personally that it is pretty important, right? Someone who's representing us at the United Nations, is an important role. But I can't tell you why they chose her for that position. She has a career in American diplomacy, and she is or has served as the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs in the United States Department of State's Bureau of African Affairs. So she has some ties to diplomacy when it comes to Africa. I'm not sure what that's going to mean in terms of her diplomacy on behalf of Black people here in America, but but we'll keep an eye on it. And again, this is a position that was held by Susan Rice prior to this, and so this is the second, I think, Black woman to be a part of this, or to have this job.
All right, so let's look at the Treasury Secretary, Janet Louise Yellen.
Yes, this is probably one of the most safe and important picks that Biden made. So, with respect to Janet Yellen, Janet Yellen is the former chair of the Federal Reserve. Okay, she took over after Ben Bernanke right after the 2009, 10 or 11 crisis, and she's generally thought of by folks in Washington and in New York and in the financial centers of the world to be someone who has done a really good job of managing the economy at least as much as the Federal Reserve can, and she's someone to who is generally widely respected among sort of the professionals, in finance and in markets and sort of the Washington elite. So, so this is a really really safe pick, and it's interesting because she's going to, from the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be an independent, sort of part of our government, to the Treasury, which is a very not independent part of our government, right? It's a White House cabinet, sort of seat, right? So she's going to have, I think, a kind of experience and a kind of perspective that's very, very unique. I think she may be the first female Treasury pick ever, if I'm not mistaken. And she is going to have, and she may have been the first female Federal Reserve chairwoman, if I'm not mistaken. So she's making history, and she's someone who is generally thought of to be, if you're talking about like economic policy, a moderate and someone who is pretty safe, but is widely respected.
All right. Let's see. What about the White House press secretary, Jennifer Saki? Sorry.
Saki.
Saki.
Yeah,
Yes.
Saki. So this is interesting because there was some conversation around why Simone Sanders didn't get this job, and did Simone Sanders, who was working in Biden's campaign press office and operation, why she didn't get this, and there was some sort of teasing going on about that Simone Sanders got demoted, because Simone Sanders has been tapped to lead the Vice President elect Harris's communications team. So and I'm not so sure about what the sort of thinking was behind that. Saki though does have experience. She was formerly a who she did have some White House press and communications experience prior. She comes from the Obama administration, right? So here's another person coming from the Barack Obama administration. And she's also been making the rounds on the TV networks, CNN in particular. So a pretty safe pick here. I don't expect any problems with her getting the job, and we'll see how she handles it. Generally, there are multiple press secretaries, over the course of an administration. We saw that very much in the Trump administration. If you can remember the first Trump press secretary,
Sean Spicer, how can you forget?
All right, spicy. Okay. All right. And so generally there's more than one, and that job is a job that it's very very visible. You are like the voice of the president, the voice of the White House every single day. You have to come out there and talk about like the what's going on, face the press, do the press conferences. So yeah.
All right. What about the Surgeon General, Vivek?
Right.
Hadegiri Murthy?
Murthy. Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Murthy.
Sorry, man. I botched your name, my brother, but I did my best.
No worries. You did a great job. So this is a historic pick in the sense that it's the first Surgeon General of Indian descent, right? And this is going to be an important job, especially right now that we're dealing with COVID and potential, issues around vaccines and distribution. And I know we'll talk about COVID soon, in this show, and then we'll also talk about vaccines in particular in a later show, right? Because I know that's a hot topic. But this is a pretty safe pick. Um, Someone who has wide experience. Uh, he's the founder of Doctors for America. And he's a pretty young guy. He's born in the '70s, late '70s, in 1977. So he's one of the younger picks for the cabinet. We'll see how he does, but this is going to be a very, very important role, especially right now since we are dealing with a historic pandemic.
All right. Let's see. Top White House economic advisor, Brian Deese.
Yes, Brian Christopher Deese. Yes. So this is another Obama person. Okay, he served as senior advisor to Mr. Obama. And he is someone who also has some OMB experience. He comes from the Office of Management and Budget as well. I'm not so familiar with his economic philosophy. He was the deputy director of the National Economic Council as well. So that generally the job of top economic advisor is important. However, because you have such a powerhouse in the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, I think the job of advising the president on economic policy is going to be split between Yellen, who, like I said, comes from the Federal Reserve and has a long, wide, and deep, sort of economic philosophy and experience. She's just as qualified as anyone to advise the president.
So I got a quick question on the economic advisor role. Could that role have a serious economic impact on ADOS and poor people, or no?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's any policy that deals with economics is going to have an impact on ADOS. Absolutely. And so, what advice the president's getting about what to do, which particular policy to support, not to support. For example, one of the biggest parts of the first 100 days of Mr. Biden is probably going to be some sort of stimulus, some sort of economic stimulus, right? How big are the checks? 1,200, 2,000, 600? How much unemployment insurance extension do we want? 0, 300, 600? How long should it last? How many checks should we get? What about extending people's rent eviction forgiveness? What about rent forgiveness? Right? What about college debt? Right? These are things that are going to impact the economics and the personal finance of millions of Americans, ADOS included. And so, anyone that's advising the president on economic policy is going to be very, very important to what the real world looks like for ADOS.
Okay. All right. So should we go to the next slide or?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we had a comment that I just wanted to show here from Jacaranda Williams.
What's up,
Hello,
family?
Chris. Ados Memphis, UN panel agrees with the U.S. that the U.S. owes reparations to African Americans.
Yes, and that's true. And shout out to the ADOS Memphis family. Shout out to you, Jacaranda. Shout out to Rhea. Shout out to the whole ADOS Tennessee fam, Nashville, Chattanooga, Memphis, Knoxville. If I forgot you, I didn't mean to forget you. Yes, you're absolutely right. The UN already said back in like 2001, I think, but way back, that that the U.S. owes reparations. The problem is the U.S. is very powerful, and the UN altogether is not as powerful as just the U.S. And we are powerful inside of the UN, to be honest with you. So yes, that's true. The problem is that has no force in the real world. The UN can say what it wants, but ultimately the U.S. decides what the U.S. does, right? So yeah.
So I'm gonna go back up to actually, Kim, could we go back to the slide, just the previous slide? Since we talked about yeah, there you go. So we did mention the United Nations. So if Linda Thomas Greenfield, right, did get picked, would that be beneficial for ADOS? In terms of that question, in terms of representing the UN and reparations and that level?
Well, it depends on whether or not one, the Biden administration cares about reparations. One, like, so does it care about reparations? Right, because she works for Biden, right? So Biden is her boss. So she's going to do what Biden and the administration says do in the UN. She's going to prioritize what Biden says prioritize. So if in their meetings and their conversations and if reparations is not a priority of the Biden administration, it's not going to be a priority of the UN ambassador. That's why it's important for activists, organizers, regular people like us to be making a lot of noise about reparations over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, and also bringing as many other people as possible to that same fight. Right? We are facing an uphill battle with respect to public and popular support. Right? And so part of our job over the next year, 2 years, 3 years is going to be to build popular support for reparations, specifically for American descendants of slavery, those of us who descend from the institution of U.S. chattel slavery, right? That's our job. And so, one thing that's going to be that we have to keep in mind is that, yes, policy is personnel, right? But another saying, right? Politicians respond to pressure, not applause. And so we're going to have to build power and up the pressure on Biden to prioritize reparations, so that way, Linda can be talking about it, at the UN, and talking about how the UN is going to chip in, for this check, okay? Or these multiple checks.
All right. So White House Chief of Staff Ronald Klein.
Okay. Let's talk about Mr. Ronald Klein. So another Obama guy, another Clinton guy. Okay. He goes back to the 90s and even before, really, but to the 90s. He goes back to the crime bill era. Okay. Now let's talk about chief of staff first of all. That's one of the most important jobs in the White House. It may be the most important job in the White House, because if you want to get to the president, you got to go through the chief of staff, right? If you want time, if on his schedule, if you want him to hear what you're saying, even for cabinet members, you got to go through the chief of staff. Okay, they are the sort of top, top deputy, top person to the president. This is probably one of the most important jobs, if not the most important job, next to like vice president. Right? It's usually it's like president, vice president, chief of staff. And to be honest with you, depending on how their relationships are, even the vice president might have to go through the chief of staff to get to the president. Okay, the vice president, by the way, has their own chief of staff also. So this is an important job. Okay, the chief of staff is in on every single conversation, pretty much. Every single conversation is helping to organize the relationship between the president and Congress, also between the president and the public, and between the president and the inner parts of the White House and the inner parts of the federal government. So this is a hugely important job. Mr. Ronald Klein has a very controversial history, and some would say, and I would also say, not a good one, because he was partly responsible for how bad the crime bill was for black folks. He was part of the writing of it. Okay. And it's very troubling to see that Mr. Biden picked this guy. Now, Mr. Biden, was the author himself of the crime bill, and was the author of almost every single, or many of the different crime bills, of the 90s, 80s, and late 70s. Okay, so this is very troubling. This was a pick that you know really raised flags for me, raised an alarm for me, and one that I think is one that we're gonna have to watch very, very closely, and see if he is influencing at all criminal justice policy coming out of the White House. So this was a big pick, and not a very good one.
All right, so let's go to John Kerry himself, special
Yes.
presidential envoy for climate.
Yes, Mr. John Kerry, who we talked about briefly before, former presidential candidate John Kerry, former, he comes out of the Obama administration also, right? Um, former senator, very, very famous, person. He is being tapped for climate czar, what they call the climate czar. This, I think, like I said, has the potential to be a controversial pick through the confirmation process. But I think all in all, Kerry will get this job. The thing is, though, Kerry's a very high profile figure, and so, because Biden himself has planned to re-enter the U.S. into the Paris climate agreement, right? Kerry's going to be instrumental in that. He's also going to be important to helping set what our climate sort of posture and position is as a country. So this is going to be an important pick, and ultimately I think he will ultimately get the job.
All right, so we got about 15, 14 minutes left in the program. So
Speed
yeah,
round, speed round.
time flies. All right. So
Lightning
yeah,
round.
Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines.
Yes. So D and I, Haynes, another Obama pick. And now, how many times have I said so far that this is somebody coming out of the Obama administration, right? Probably like 10 times, right? Another person coming out of the Obama administration. She was the deputy director of the CIA. So she comes from the intelligence community. I'm not sure if she's the first woman to take this job. She may be. And she did do some national security affairs work in or for Mr. Obama also. So a career intelligence officer, maybe historic because she may be the first woman, but I'm not sure. But again, someone who comes out of the Obama administration.
All right. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken.
Blinken, yes. Okay. I'm gonna say it again. Comes from the Obama administration. All right. Also worked in the Clinton administration. Also, did some work for the National Security Council. And again, another Obama pick. And this is why people are saying this is the third Obama term. Okay. Because you have a lot of these people coming out of, and to be honest with you, maybe a third Clinton term too. Third Bill Clinton term. So yeah.
All right. Secretary of Homeland Security.
Yes, we have Mr. I forget his name here. But this is the
Marcus, I think is his last name.
yes,
Marcus, I think.
yes,
Marcus. Okay.
yes, and this is a historic pick. First Latino for this position. Born in Cuba, right? First Latino pick, uh, an important job, right? Homeland Security, is a new position, right? You know, a new office that came out of the aftermath of 9/11, right? So it's a new department. This is someone though who came out of the Obama administration also, right? And he did work around immigration in the Obama administration, so you can expect that there's going to be, you know, at least the conversation around immigration is going to be, you know, higher priority due to this pick.
All right, Office of Management and Budget. I think you briefly touched on this, but if you want to elaborate on Tandon.
Yes, Miss Nira Tandon. Yeah, I mean, I won't say much more other than to say she is, you know, coming from she is, you know, she is of Indian descent. I believe she may be the first woman for this pick. Also, she is coming from the she worked for, she was a top advisor to the Hillary Clinton campaign, which is why a lot of the progressive Bernie types hate her guts. Okay, because she took a very anti-Bernie, anti-progressive sort of, you know, lean, and she's known for taking shots on Twitter at the progressives. You know, she's known for blaming Bernie people for Hillary losing in 2016. So that's why the people on the progressive left, Bernie side of the game, don't like her. And then she also has some issues with some of the folks on the right. They think she's super left. So, you know, she may have some issues during the confirmation process.
And she's also POC, people of color.
Yes, whatever.
So that would be some benefit. You know. All right. So yes, fam.
Shoot them down.
I'm on mute. But I was talking to a Bernie or Buster, and they did not like that pick, like her in that pick, because they thought that she would block anything that Bernie tried to do on the budget from the Senate.
Let's talk about this for 1 minute here. So the Bernie and progressive left people have been making some noise over the last month about Bernie being snubbed for cabinet positions and for Elizabeth Warren being snubbed for cabinet positions. Bernie himself made public statements about how he wanted to be Secretary of Labor or one or two other picks, and there was some talk about Elizabeth Warren being floated for Treasury, and none of that happened, right? So instead, you get Obama people, Clinton people, right? And so you get sort of these like anti sort of Bernie people. And yeah, you're right. The progressives are not happy. The Bernie side of the progressives are not happy.
So, Chris, would you say that most of these cabinet nominations are more moderate than liberal or progressive?
I would say they are corporate Democrat picks. They are definitely what you could call moderate, like moderate Democrat with his like diet Republican. Right. These are like Obama Democrats, right? And as you can see, 10 or so of these people, if not more, come from the Obama administration. That's the big takeaway here, that we are going to see, I think, in policy, if you liked what you saw under Barack Obama, you can expect that. Okay, that's not good for ADOS, right? We had, black, wealth drop by half, black homeownership drop by, to his historic lows, the wealth gap go up, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And we didn't even touch on Rahm Emanuel, but if he gets in as transportation, do we think we're going to see supercharged Uber gig economy?
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you so much for bringing up Mr. Rahm. We almost didn't talk about him. He almost slipped by. And
we ain't gonna forget. We're gonna keep talking about it.
So Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago, former Clinton person, former Obama person, right? Right now he has like a speaking, talking head gig on, I think, ABC, right? He was being floated for some sort of cabinet position. transportation or trade, one of those. And I think the viewers here will be familiar with, over the last week, a very famous interview on CNN with Jamal Bowman, who's coming into Congress out of New York, who was being interviewed on CNN, and they asked him this same question about Rahm Emanuel, why he's being floated for some sort of cabinet position, and Jamal Bowman got to talking facts about Mr. Rahm Emanuel, how he hid and covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald in Chicago, and about how he is, probably one of the worst people for any job in the White House, and that he should not even be in the conversation. And obviously, that was a little bit too much truth for CNN, and his whole mic was cut, his whole his whole feed was cut, right, as he was going into the facts. So I think because there's been such an uproar over the last week or two around Rahm Emanuel, I think Biden has probably backed off any serious, at least public consideration. But suffice it to say, if we see a Rahm Emanuel appointment, people are going to be pissed off. People are going to be pissed off, from the left and from the right.
Well, I think before we, because we got 5 minutes in the program, but I think we should definitely, once these nominations get confirmed, we should definitely have a show and talk about the plan that we as ADOS should be doing for the next, I guess, 90 days or first year, 2, 3, that Biden's going to be in office. So what do you think about that, fam?
Hell yeah, absolutely yes, and it's important. And this is an important show, right? Where else are you going to get a pick by pick sort of breakdown, of each of these cabinet picks? We do political education here, right? So the main takeaway here is that, one, these are some of the most important jobs in the government, and two, absolutely we have to keep an eye on these people, because policy is personnel and politicians respond to pressure, not applause.
All right, cool. Kim, do you mind putting up the flyer so see what topics that we have? Oh, okay.
Oh, well, I know what's next. We were talking about the H1B lawsuits. Trump filed on Facebook, and then everybody came back and filed on Trump. So there's just lawsuits flying all on this. So I guess Trump was saying that Facebook was being discriminatory in their hiring practices, towards Americans in favor of H1B green card holders or seekers. And then they came back and sued him and said that, let's see what it says here, U.S. companies, universities, and associations have combined to file 2 lawsuits against the Trump administration's new H-1B visa regulations. Critics say the purpose of the rules is to make it virtually impossible for U.S. employers to hire high-skilled foreign nationals or sponsor them for permanent residence. What do we make of all that?
Oh, so let's ground this in the. Well, I'm just gonna keep it real. I'm not mad that Facebook got sued. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm not mad, because I know how much Black ADOS people are out here looking for jobs and looking for high skilled jobs. So I'm not mad. And any company that is intentionally not hiring Americans, and that's what the allegations here. And again, this is not Trump himself. This is the Trump Department of Justice, right? So the Department of Justice sued Facebook and claims that Facebook not just overlooked U.S. workers, they quote unquote refused to hire U.S. workers, and that they held some 2,500, 2,600 jobs just specifically for non-Americans. Some of these jobs pay up to $150,000 a year. Okay, so I'm not mad if the allegations are true. Facebook deserves to get sued, and any company that's refusing to hire Americans, particularly American descendants of slavery, you deserve to be sued. You deserve what's coming to you. That's my position, And in terms of the countersuits, the Trump administration did respond or did counter sometime in the summer by some rule saying that, hey, you have to hire um, Americans, and also that you have new restrictions on H1B visa hires, and so that's what the sort of countersuit sort of game is going on right now. But for those of you who are familiar with the ADOS agenda, you know very, very well that part of our agenda is that the H1B visa program be reviewed, restricted, and also that ADOS tech graduates be hired. It looks like we have a call, huh?
Yeah, we do have a call. So let me go get the call. All right, let's see here. 510. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, how are you? This is CA calling out of Oakland.
Big CA from Oakland.
Hey, what's up, bro?
What's up, man? What's going on? So bring your thoughts, man, your wisdom.
Good. Just want to give you some research on this part of the topic. So the H1B one, as Chris is saying, it affects us in the ADOS community. As you know, for the past 50 years, Black males have had the highest EEOC complaints of any other demographic or group, even to the point where Blacks don't even hire skilled Black males with Black-owned companies the way they should. So our demographic is the highest. You see, in reference to what Chris was talking about, Facebook, you can research, and I always try to give you guys things that you can research yourself, so I'm not just making a speech to you. You can research how the Black man got fired from Facebook, which is not that many Black people there to begin with, but he got fired and let go for no obtuse reason. And we needed people to financially support that guy so his message can come out, so he can at least make statements to the ADOS public or just the Black public period, to let them know what was going on. The strength of what Chris is talking about is the fact that I always make these speeches where I tell people of other cultures hire their flag first, regardless of whether they're skilled or not. I used to be in IT back in the day. I worked for Microsoft, Earthlink, and Mindspring. Many people from other countries would come, but only know 1/3 of computing. They only know the stuff that's hot, the stuff that would get them hired. But they don't know the whole totality of what they should be doing, or they have to relearn so much stuff. And when you speak to a lot of ADOS tech people, they'll tell you, yeah, I had to reteach this person, or my boss told me, educate this person on this. And I'm like, well, why are you hiring them? And so we're flooded with a lot of visa people who played the game when NAFTA went down, when Clinton passed NAFTA, and he had originally did it to help do outsourcing and what have you. A lot of those people went and took those jobs and and if you guys look at on YouTube, there's India has schools that they would put up instantly. Like if you got a job at a car manufacturer, you instantly put money together and created a school so you can teach everybody CNA. And then you have a bunch of people run the CNA. Then the CNA people would go back and donate for people who wanted to get a little bit of IT knowledge. Then you had all these schools doing IT knowledge. So in conclusion, the problem is with the visas, you can't really regulate who's coming in from the HR level, because HR doesn't have mechanisms that allow ADOS people or even the EEOC to judge who are you hiring and why.
CA,
Unfortunately, Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I got a quick question for you. So, do you think they're hiring these individuals outside of America because they're easier to terminate their positions, pay them less? Why do you think they're going outside of the U.S. to hire these H1B visa people?
People, okay. So I work in medical finance. I'm the only black man at UCSF in my department. Okay. What happens on the HR level starts with who's hiring, who's allowing information to, let's say, get to Kim. If I'm the HR person, I'm only allowing certain people to get to Kim for her to review. So that's where it starts. It starts at the HR level. There's no mechanisms in place for people to judge who's hiring and why. So that's the first level. The second answer to your question is it's not so much of a money thing. It's more of these people have promoted themselves to know a particular craft or how to do a particular thing over a Zoom interview. But when they get there, they many times need OJT training. So to Chris's point, there's a lot of black people walking around with that same information, but they don't have no hero in the HR level, and they're once they get the interview, they may not be particular to that one thing that this manager needs because it's brand new. Many times, what would happen? People would get brand new information, learn that information, but then you don't know how to deal with a server. You know what I'm saying? So it's a 2-tier answer for your question.
Okay.
So what's the solution? We know the problem. Thank you for explaining the problem. What's the solution?
Okay, the solution was a long time ago, and I'll bring it up to now. The HR level stuff, we have to get back to that, and we have to stop telling our people that you have to be super qualified, super educated, because the rest of the groups are not doing that. The Filipinos are not doing that today, people. The Chinese are not doing that today, people. So we, for probably maybe about 30 years that I've been involved in different positions, we have been the number one gatekeepers of our people. While when you talk to, because I speak a little bit of Gujarati, when you talk to other cultures or you listening in as a second language to other cultures, they're not putting those restrictions on their people. So to answer your question directly on a grassroots level, we got to stop doing that to our people. We got to stop telling our people we have to be super qualified while their counterpart is not under the same pressure. And the second answer to your question is we have to look at the EEOC every time we have an unemployment conversation. If black males are the highest demographic with this issue, then we have to look at the ADOS and black community and say, wait a minute, how are we not hiring our own? How are all these positions that we have as managers, as like I got 12 people hired within the past 2 years just before COVID. How are we not being able to turn and say, I've been a manager for 2 years, but I've hired nobody. Everybody I've hired has been outsourced because of skill or whatever, while this person over here, they've hired mostly their people. It's an uncomfortable conversation, I know, but I'm just giving you the realistics of what it is.
Okay. Well, I know we appreciate your time. It's almost ran out of.
Thank you very much.
Good wisdom. Thanks for calling, CA.
Yeah.
Always call back, bro.
Yeah, and so I know you more. Actually, I want to follow up with what the brother CA said. One, he's spot on. He's spot on, 100%. Everything that he just said. I want to point our viewers to 80west101.com. If you look at the Black Agenda section, there is some talk about what we think the solutions are to this H1B visa issue. It is an uncomfortable conversation, like the brother said. It's one of those conversations where depending on who you're talking to, right? These talking about protecting our own jobs and protecting our own community, right? To some people sounds like we are talking against other groups, right? And so this is one of those conversations where if you're being honest and you're talking about protecting your own people, you will get called names. You will get called all kind of names for talking about protecting your own people. You will get called anti this, anti that, anti this. But be that as it may, as uncomfortable as that is, stand on your square, right? Because everything CA said is right. There's a July 2020 article that confirms everything that he just said, about how Black folks, we get these high, powerful degrees in tech, and then we don't get the jobs. We have the experience, we have the skills, we have the expertise, but we're not getting hired. And that's what this lawsuit is if the allegations are true, right? That's what it's proof of, that you have companies that are deliberately not hiring us. They're deliberately refusing to hire us, right? When we get these big, specialty STEM and STEAM, education, right? So I did want to follow up with that. One of the things that we are recommending, is that this program be limited. This H1B program be strictly limited, if not paused, right? And then completely revamped, completely rewritten, so that way we are prioritizing homegrown in-house talent. There's nothing anti-immigrant about that. There's nothing xenophobic about that, right? At all. And so don't be sort of scared off of sort of talking about that, right? And the evidence is behind us.
All right. Thanks for the follow-up, Chris. Let's see what we got. All right, so let's go to the COVID update, shall we?
COVID. Yes.
All right.
And introducing a regional stay-at-home order in the state of California, fundamentally predicated on the need to stop gathering with people outside of your household, to do what you can to keep most of your activities outside, and of course, always most important non-pharmaceutical intervention, that is wear face coverings, wear a mask. Here's what we are introducing today. Regions where the ICU capacity is falling below 15%, we are now mandating that we are implementing a stay-at-home order for 3 weeks. These regions are defined by this slide. We have 5 regions in this state. These regions are considered and constructed based upon pre-existing mutual aid system in the state of California. You may recall a number of months back in Imperial County, we had a situation where their ICUs and hospitals were overwhelmed. We had pre-planned strategies for mutual aid in surge capacity. Again, it's all part of a regional strategy well defined within the hospital and healthcare delivery system. We've defined these 5 regions: Northern California, Greater Sacramento Bay Area, San Joaquin Valley, and the larger region in Southern California. Take a look at what our projections suggest. The 5 regions that we have highlighted, most of these, 4 out of the 5, we anticipate as early as the next day or 2, as early or rather as late as the next week or so, that the Greater Sacramento, Northern California regions, as well as San Joaquin Valley and Southern California regions will have reached that 15% or less ICU capacity. The Bay Area may have a few extra days. Our current projections suggest mid, maybe late December, but all within just the next few weeks, our ICU capacity in the state of California will drop in these 5 regions, not just in the aggregate, reminding you none of us live in the aggregate, but in these regions where we all reside, 40 million of us. The ICU capacity in all of these regions by the end of this month will drop, based on our current projections, below 15%.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So one thing to say, and for those, so one, us here, we're in the greater Sacramento area. For those of you who don't know, this show is largely produced out of the greater Sacramento area, and we are right now. Last time I checked, we are at 18% ICU capacity, 18 and a half percent, and we're very close to that 15% threshold. I expect, to be honest with you, because a week ago we were at sort of 21, 22%. I expect that we are going to hit that 15% threshold sometime this week, if not this weekend. And that's not going to be good news, especially for not just for our people who have to go to work, right, and who have jobs, but our black-owned businesses, and that's a particular concern of mine. We want our people to be healthy. We want our communities to be healthy and safe, but we also have to keep in mind that we have a lot of black-owned businesses that have been struggling since the beginning of the pandemic, and who really can't afford to close and shut down and go under restrictions, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, especially during a time when it's supposed to be like some of the best, business for them. So, this is a really tough time. One thing that we're seeing though is that there has been almost a resistance among law enforcement about enforcing a lot of these sort of stay-at-home orders. If you think about some of the law enforcement coming out of Southern California and San Joaquin County, and even here in Sacramento, today there was a very long 8-hour county board of supervisors meeting where the county board rescinded, the new enforcement sort of actions against businesses that were not willing to comply. And the Sacramento County Sheriff himself, Scott Jones, has been repeatedly saying that he is not going to be enforcing, a lot of these sort of stay at home orders. So, this is a tough time. We want our people to be safe. We want our communities to be healthy, but at the same time, we also want us to not die economically also. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's probably going to segue to the end of our show. We have to think about the second stimulus package that has yet to be approved through Congress, right? So that's
Yeah.
big, man,
Yeah, and just a quick update on that. This is the last week of what they call the lame duck session of Congress, or at least for the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is scheduled to go on vacation for the holiday this Thursday. The Senate next week. So if they're going to get something done, they have to get it done in the next 72 hours or so. They can always extend their own schedule. Congress has control over its own schedule, so they can always make themselves stay longer. I would be very surprised if the Congress went on break and on a holiday without doing at least something, even if it's like a Band-Aid sort of stopgap measure until we get into January. They're going to be, a lot of pissed off people back at home if Congress comes back home and goes on vacation and they have done nothing, because there hasn't been a stimulus since March, April, May, right? May, really, and people are hurting, right? So yeah.
Even in some of the stimulus language I've seen, it doesn't look like there's going to be the individual payments like last time, the $1,200
Right.
check. It looks like they're trying to skirt around that. And then I did this week, in fact, just certified for my last unemployment payment. But then I immediately got a text that said, "Oh, your benefits are being extended 13 more weeks." I don't know if that has anything to do with the stimulus or if that's going to shut off on December 31st, when a lot of these things are going to
that's probably the
expire.
state. And so, just for folks to know, here in California, the governor did announce a bunch of new initiatives earlier early last week, for businesses. Sales taxes are deferred for the first 3 months of the new year. There's a $100 million hiring tax credit, that's out and that's new. There's about $125 million, I believe, in new small business grant opportunities opened up. There have been also actions been taken on unemployment. So that may be what you're referring to, Kim. So the state of California is acting, but it's also at the same time creating the conditions for which it has to act. Right, these stay-at-home orders, right, are a part of the reason why we need new EDD, new unemployment, new business help, right? So we're sort of caught in this sort of loop, and the federal government itself has not been doing its job. We just got to keep it real. Federal government, has really dropped the ball on this, and we're suffering the consequences.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Chris. Political yoga. Yourself. I'm sorry, not yoga. Yoda. I meant Yoda. Yoga too. I mean, if you want to rely on the political, but I meant Yoda. All right, you know the political Yoda, the goat, the political goat. All right. I really don't have any other words to say, but thank you, fam, for coming out and checking us out on 80CA Media Group. This was a great build, and I don't know, Chris, Kim, what do you guys got to say before we head out?
Well, just really quickly, peace, love, and all that. But just really quickly, we are underway in the UK with the first vaccination.
Thanks for that.
So just letting you know that it's across the pond right now, but coming soon to America near you. So just watch out for that. I know we'll have an extended show on that later because there's a lot to talk about. Unless either of you have anything to say, I will take us out of here with some more information on some of the stimulus expirations that will be expiring on December 31st.
So you good, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll say one thing. I was gonna let this go, but now that you brought up the vaccine, we're gonna have a show on this for sure. So make sure you check out. Make sure you come back for our vaccine show, and then also make sure you check out our last show. We had Maureen Simmons on. We had Tiffany Quarles talking about the California Reparations Bill Task Force that's coming into effect in 2021. And then one thing to say about the vaccine thing, on Thursday, the FDA is going to meet to approve or not emergency use of Pfizer's vaccine. So right now, there's no vaccine approved for the United States yet. On Thursday, the FDA will vote and decide whether or not to approve emergency authorization use for that Pfizer vaccine, the one that you saw the picture of just now. So Thursday's a big day. Just keep that in mind.
All right.
All right. Salute.
Peace.
An estimated 19 million Americans currently facing impending economic devastation wait with bated breath for Congress to find common ground and reach a compromise to pass a second stimulus package before pandemic relief protections expire, pushing vulnerable populations to their demise over a steeply inclined financial cliff. According to a November 19th article from ABC News, Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, which provides an additional 13 weeks of unemployment insurance, and the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, which aids self-employed or part-time workers, are set to expire December 31st. The nationwide eviction moratorium will also expire at the end of the year, as well as the Student Loan Forbearance Program, which President Donald Trump implemented by executive order. Tax credits for required paid sick leave and for family sick leave for self-employed individuals will also end. As of November 30, 2020, under pressure from outgoing President Donald Trump and projected presidential-elect Joe Biden to pass a stimulus relief bill, Congress is briefly reconvening in Washington, D.C. Perhaps in their own self-interest to break for holiday recess as soon as possible, Senate and House representatives will come to consensus, and the second stimulus cliffhanger saga will end with a Christmas miracle before 2020 year end. Keep the faith, fam. Please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for all 80CA Media YouTube channel Impact updates.